1.
Social, and reproductive human actions. Understanding why some animals help others at the potential cost of their own survival and reproduction, for example, not only gives us insight into their behavior, but could also potentially help us to understand the underpinnings of our species' ideas of altruism and sacrifice.
The first behavior we will talk about is the instinctive behavior. It's a behavior performed without thought and cannot be modified by learning, and we very commonly refer to this behavior as instincts in short. Some examples of this behavior could be a cockroach fleeing from light, dogs spinning in a circle before they bed, or snakes striking at small, warm, moving objects.
The next behavior is known as imprinting. I know what you're thinking. Team Jacob 100%. Imprinting involves the ability to learn specific and essential pieces of information during the right stages of development, and animals are most open to learning through imprinting through a stage that we call critical period. Imprinting provides opportunity to learn key components on the environment while still retaining those innate behavioral patterns. It allows more flexibility in the development of food preference, as food availability in a habitat can vary from season to season. An excellent example of imprinting would be on Conrad Lorenz and his geese, in which we have a picture. Lorenz found that goslings learn to recognize and tell apart their mother from a very early stage, and by substituting himself for a mother goose at the right developmental stage, he succeeded in getting the gosling to imprint on him and faithfully follow him wherever he went.
General behavioral habit would be cognition. Cognition allows animals to separate themselves from the immediacy of their environment and to reflect on the past in order to solve present problems. Having cognitive behavior was once thought as a defining characteristic of humanity, but scientists have recognized that cognitive behaviors are not solely restricted to humans and are oftentimes found in animals too. Learning through cognition may be more removed from genetic constraints than other forms of learning, but cognitive problem-solving ability can vary substantially among different animals within a species. Variation in ability is inherited, so at its core, there is a genetic element underlying cognitive abilities. Cognition gives animals a high level of flexibility in their social and physical environments, but even cognition is ultimately constrained by genetic limits. One interesting aspect of cognition is that it can allow an animal to distinguish itself as a distinct identity. If an animal looks at its own image in a mirror and recognizes self rather than identifying the image as another animal, then some investigators interpret this as an evidence of cognition. Social cognition, the ability of an animal to forecast how its own actions will affect its future relationships within a social group, exists in chimpanzees, although it's more limited than in humans, and may extend to other species. In social groups without cognition, behavioral interactions are very much in the moment, driven by factors such as dominance and family membership. Social cognition allows animals to be more calculating and manipulative in their social relationships. Chimpanzees do not appear to be mean to other members of their social group without justification, but they can and do exact revenge against group members that exhibit selfish behavior.
Describe the three general behavioral traits, we can go into the more basic ones. One's more along the lines of foraging, parental care, courtship or reproductive, offensive defensive, territorial, social, migratory, communications or vocalizations and nonverbal signaling, curiosity, elimination, resting, and playful behaviors. The foraging relationship is searching for wild food sources. It affects an animal's fitness because it plays an important role in the animal's ability to survive and reproduce. Foraging theory is a branch of behavioral ecology that studies the foraging behaviors of animals in response to its environment and where the animal lives. Parental behavior care is hormonal and dependent in initiating the onset brooding behavior and continues through the period when the young are being fed and crop milk. Patterns of parental behavior are related to the developmental status of young at birth. Reproductive behavior is behavior that relates to the production of offspring. It includes such patterns as the establishment of mating systems, courtship, sexual behavior, parturition, and the care of young. Offensive behavior is characterized as an attack attitude, while defensive behavior, coming to the recipient of an action and intention, is a combination of alertness and passive position. Both behaviors can overlap each other. Defensive behavior can transport a person into exhibiting offensive actions, while offensive behavior can root from defensive reasons. Offensive behavior is often the origin of conflict, while defensive behavior is a reaction to the conflict and threat. Offensive behavior starts the negative cycle, while the defensive behavior can defuse it. Offensive behavior leans toward obvious exhilaration and expression in public. While defensive behavior and mechanisms often are subtle, internal reactions can vary depending on the person.
Territorial behavior in zoology are the methods by which an animal or group of animals protects its territory from incursions by others of its species. Territorial boundaries may be marked by sounds such as bird songs or scents such as pheromones secreted by the skin glands of many animals. Social behavior is defined as interactions among individuals, normally within the same species, that are usually beneficial to one or more of the individuals. Migratory behavior is the periodic passage of groups of animals, especially birds or fishes, from one region to another for feeding or breeding. The movement of persons from one country or locality to another. Next is animal communication. Most animals, including people, use body language as well as sound and smell in order to communicate with one another. Here are some of the ways animals express themselves. Many animals communicate by smell. They release pheromones, airborne chemicals, to send messages to others. Curiosity is heavily associated with all aspects of animal and human development, in which derives the process of learning and desire to acquire knowledge and skill. The term curiosity can also be used to denote the behavior or emotion of being curious in regard to the desire to gain knowledge or information. Elimination behavior is a ritual and method of passing urine and feces, particularly as seen in dogs and cats. Resting behavior is being apparent in action, and playful behavior is when an animal is inadvertently training for life.
Behavioral development is a process in which an animal's behavior shifts to adapt to certain situations. A great example of this would be Darwin's favorite, natural selection, where an animal that successfully completes a helpful behavior survives to pass on that behavior to its offspring. Another type of behavioral development would deal with innate behavior, or genetically ingrained instincts, if you will. An example of innate behavior would be an animal being easily startled or skittish, and the reasoning behind this would be self-preservation. Learning is also a behavioral development, and it essentially means that evolution of behavior through experience. This determines the final shape of innate behaviors. There are 5 types of learning. Imprinting, which, again, occurs only during a critical stage. Habituation, where the animal learns to ignore frequent harmless stimuli. Classical conditioning, where the animal learns to associate an unrelated response to a stimulus, e.g., belly or salivation. Then we have operant conditioning, where the animal learns to behave a certain way through repeated practice, like training. And lastly, reasoning, the ability to analyze a problem and devise a solution using past experiences. Cognition comes into play alongside reasoning, as both deal with the animal's experience looking back in its life to solve present and future problems.